So there are several important updates on fourth stimulus checks in many states across the country, and everybody can also claim up to $1,000 for your household. Now, new relief legislations have also been proposed, and some Americans may receive less than others. Some big developments on another round of stimulus payments. The Kentucky Senate recently passed a bill that will tap into the state's massive revenue surpluses to deliver more than $1 billion in income tax rebates to taxpayers. The measure cleared the Senate on a 28-7 vote. That was just days after being proposed. It would grant state personal income tax rebates of up to $500 per individual and up to $1,000 per household. The proposal next goes to the House, where a separate measure introduced was that would gradually reduce Kentucky's individual income tax. The sweeping House bill also would extend the state sales tax to a host of services. The Republican Senator Chris McDaniel, who was sponsoring the income tax rebate, said the measure would deliver some relief for Kentucky residents struggling with prices, the rising prices of fuel, groceries, and utilities. McDaniel added, "This bill is not a statement about anything other than who gave the state this money and who needs this money the most." The one-time rebates are expected to cost the state up to $1.15 billion. Once the proposal becomes law, the rebates should be distributed to people in Kentucky. One Democratic senator called it a bad tax policy, saying broad sections of the state's population, including retirees and the working poor, would not benefit from the rebates. Instead, Senator Tom touted the proposed temporary cut in the state sales tax as a way to provide widespread relief from rising consumer prices. Democratic governor had endorsed that bill, which proposes a one-year cut in the sales tax from 6% to 5% of everybody. It would actually deliver $873 million in tax relief for Kentuckians that are struggling with the rising prices that they are facing. There are many other states that are working on getting more relief passed for their residents. For example, people in Virginia, the governor is now proposing a gas tax suspension. The Virginia governor has sent legislation to the General Assembly to propose suspending the state's gas tax for a total of 3 months this summer. The governor in Virginia's proposal would suspend the motor vehicle fuels tax for May, June, and July, before slowly phasing it back and slowly in August and September. The state tax is currently 26.2 cents per gallon for gas and 27 cents for diesel. The proposal would also cap the annual adjustment to the gas tax at no more than 2% per year. The governor has said in a statement that people in Virginia need tax relief, and it's time for the General Assembly to act on the multiple tax relief proposals. With gas prices and inflation squeezing families, pocketbooks across Virginia and the nation, and with over $1 billion in unanticipated revenue in our transportation fund, the General Assembly must act now. Virginia should join numerous other states, led by both Republicans and Democrats, in temporarily suspending the gas tax. The money from Virginia's gas tax is deposited in the Commonwealth Transportation Fund, along with a portion of the state sales and use tax. That fund pays for the maintenance and construction for all modes of transportation. Also earlier this year, Idaho proposed a bill that would provide Idaho residents with a rebate of 12% of their 2020 state tax, or $75, whichever is greater. The rebates are intended for earners and their dependents. If you are an Idaho resident, you should have received your payment back in March, but those who receive their tax refunds via direct deposit will be the first to see their rebates. Folks, if you think that President Biden should definitely do more and send out stimulus checks sooner than later, then tell me in the comments down below, because I definitely believe that President Biden has to do more in sending out stimulus checks.
Not deal with moving the pieces around. He has provided flexibility to a beneficiary so that they can more easily get access to the product. What we're trying to do is to provide him with more authority, and he did that. Quite honestly, in the first stories that came out, speaking of, this was before I even knew of a whistleblower's report, I called for an inspector general investigation of a delay of from last October until a recall.
Folks, we have a ton of good news about the fourth stimulus check, Social Security benefits, SSI, and SSDI. Be sure to stay until the end of the video to never miss out on the most important stimulus check information. So millions of dollars, everybody, has been allocated towards another round of relief payments. It has been announced that $1,000 stimulus checks can actually be claimed right now. The IRS has also just released a very important announcement for all taxpayers, so you want to continue watching this video to not miss out on this. Vermont House and Senate lawmakers have hammered out a final deal on House Bill 510. This is a $40 million tax cut package that would include a new refundable child tax credit for Vermont residents. The bill has been sent to Vermont Governor Phil Scott's desk, and the final compromise between the two chambers would send people in Vermont $1,000 per child 5 and under. Households making $125,000 or less will be eligible for the full credit, and families claiming the credit would lose $20 per $1,000 over the income threshold. The credit would impact an estimated 33,000 children in the state, and the estimated cost to the state's coffers for this new credit alone will be $32 million. The Senate approved the bill on a vote Thursday morning. The House then responded in the afternoon by pushing the bill across the legislative finish line on a vote of 141-4. The tax credit is modeled on the federal child tax credit, which Congress temporarily expanded to $3,600 per child under 6. Now, with the final version of the bill, lawmakers did not adopt versions of previous proposals. The Vermont House in February passed $48 million of the tax credit that would have sent $1,200 to every family making $200,000 or less for each child 6 and under. The Senate responded with a $1,000 credit, with less than half of that price tag, which would have been phasing out for families making more than $55,000 a year. The upper chamber's bill also would have ended a tax cut after 3 years, but everybody, the final compromise bill does not. With the final version of the bill, lawmakers did adopt versions of previous proposals. The bill, for example, would create a deduction for all interest paid on student loans for taxpayers whose income is $120,000 for single filers and $200,000 for married filers. It also very slightly expands the state's earned income tax credit and significantly expands the child and dependent care credit. It also expands the income thresholds for Vermont Social Security exemption by $5,000. House Ways and Means Chair Representative Janet Ansell told reporters that she believed that the measure would likely create the most generous state-level child tax credit in the country. In total, the bill would reduce tax liability for an estimated 70,000 people in the state. An audit by the Treasury Inspector General for Tax Administration revealed the IRS has tossed data from millions of taxpayers. The material, known as paper-filed information returns in accounting parlance, is sent yearly by employers and financial institutions and covers taxable activity such as W-2 forms, with copies sent to taxpayers and the IRS. According to the Commissioner, Chuck Reddick, the IRS backlog, which was created by years of budget cuts, understaffing, and crisis-related issues, is expected to be cleared by September.
Connecticut is recognized for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Speaker, I rise in support of this very important piece of legislation. WIC recipients utilize formula at roughly double the rate of their non-participating families, ensuring that this crisis has had a disproportionate impact on communities and families with the highest needs. That means that low-income women and children are particularly vulnerable during this nationwide formula shortage. Today, we are taking swift action to help these families feed their babies by safely getting more baby formula onto store shelves in the face of manufacturer recalls. I'm excited to work with leadership and introduce the Access to Baby Formula Act, which helps improve access to formula products for WIC participants while also better protecting them during future product recalls. This legislation establishes waiver authority to address emergencies during disasters and supply chain disruptions by ensuring states that contract companies with the WIC program can secure supplies from additional manufacturers if necessary. This bill also waives requirements that slow down the process to get formula back on the shelves without sacrificing safety standards.